What's going on, everybody? Civ checking in, and welcome back to another Raptors video. Now, this game against the Miami Heat is actually a pretty interesting game because even though the Raptors lost, and most people might scratch this game off as an unimportant game because they lost, I actually think that is where the difference lies, because in this game not only did we get some hidden gems that really show where the Raptors are on a mental space, but also there were other plays in this game that really gave us that what could have been moment, especially considering that, quite frankly, for this whole season the Raptors are playing with injured players. So we're gonna be breaking that down as well as all the other topics in this game, and without further ado, let's get started. Now, right off the bat, we need to talk about the Raptors speed in this game, because honestly it was actually a pretty interesting thing to see. And if I'm being honest with you all, not only is it something that has been improving ever since the start of the season, despite all the injuries that the Raptors had, but also I believe that this speed is actually something that can become the cornerstone, or rather something that the Raptors can bank on, especially when things are actually clicking at an optimal level. Because when you look at how the Raptors play, especially in terms of their speed in the games, when they have a lead, they're ballooning that lead into double digits, which for a young team like the Raptors is actually pretty impressive, because we're doing this against more veteran teams like the Miami Heat and other teams of that nature. So to have double digit leads like that, that is actually pretty good stuff. And on the flip side, when the Raptors are behind the 8 ball, or rather when they're on the deficit, this speed is actually helping them get back into this game and make it a very respectable game at that. So overall, this speed that the Raptors are playing at is actually something that is pretty enjoyable, and something that the Raptors really need to analyze even more going forward, because figuring out the little nuances of it and making the necessary adjustments could really help the Raptors take their game to another level. And it's something that I really hope the Raptors do as they continue in this season, as well as the games to come in future seasons as well. Now, with that being said though, in terms of this specific game against the Miami Heat, we need to credit the Miami Heat, because they were able to break the speed of the Raptors, especially in that second half, because one, they tapped into their veteran experience through just lurking in the shadows and waiting for the opponent to really wear down or get tired of and things of that nature. But also when they strike, they make sure to strike hard and basically suffocate the opponent. How did that happen with the Raptors? Well, in that second half, the Miami Heat basically launched threes, and at a high rate at that, because in that second half it didn't really matter what type of shot the Miami Heat players were doing. You could basically guarantee that all of those shots were going to go into the basket. And as a basketball fan, that was actually pretty interesting to watch. But as a Raptors fan, that was actually very heartbreaking, because it's really hard for the Raptors to come back into this game, or rather make it a very competitive game, when you just see three after three after three after three just drop in your face over and over and over again. And to be honest, it could really mess up your morale, because it really just adds a bit of self-doubt on whether you're guarding this player properly. But I'm glad that that really didn't shake the Raptors, especially in that fourth quarter, because they were able to bounce back and show the resolve to make this a respectable game. And quite frankly, based on everything that the Raptors experienced so far, whether that be injuries or situations, to be able to fight back is actually pretty impressive, because most teams would have gave up, but that is not what the Raptors are about. We're going to fight until the end, and that is what the Raptors showed in this game as well. So kudos to the Raptors for that, and also kudos to the Heat for tapping into the veteran experience to ultimately run away with this game, because I'm sure that they needed that win as well for their records. Now, while we're talking about shooting threes, we gotta talk about how the Raptors are contesting these threes, because quite frankly, the way they're contesting it, it is, I wouldn't say unbearable to watch, but it's something that as Raptors fans, we are kind of disappointed of, because we are expecting so much better than what they're showing. Now, why am I saying all of this? Well, we gotta analyze and see who the Raptors were playing against, including this game. More specifically, who our opponents were. And who were our opponents? We played against the New York Knicks, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Dallas Mavericks, and now the Miami Heat. And when you look at all four of those teams, right? What are the two common things between all of those teams? Number one is all of those teams are very formidable opponents, being they want to make a deep playoff run push this season. But number two, all four of those teams has more than one 3-point shooter. And they are very good at that craft too. So for the Raptors, when they're facing against these types of players, what they're thinking is, as long as I stand in front of the defenders, they will just mess up their shots and we can start a fast break. Which is unfortunately not the way it works, because for one thing, the opponent's already expecting you to play some kind of defense and has found countermeasures to make sure that their shot goes off. But more importantly, number two, they believe that by them getting to the hot spots before anyone else throughout the whole game, any shot that they take is going to be an instant bucket. And we saw that today against the Miami Heat, because Tyler Hero in that game, especially in that second half, he got to his hot spots relatively quickly and he was just launching it from everywhere. In fact, he launched the shot from the half court line. And while that is not a hot spot for him, he just felt so confident in his shot because he got to the hot spots before that. What I'm saying, just standing in front of the opponents is not going to spell a success for the Raptors in terms of contesting threes. And it's something that the Raptors need to fix immediately, because in this league, which is a 3-point shooting league, there has to be more than one way to stop these threes from going, because if not, there's going to be more situations like what we saw today and the games up to this point, where we're just going to lose because we cannot make this a game, or rather we are getting outshot and outrun just from 3-point shooting alone. So with that being said though, what is that countermeasure that the Raptors can do to help them contest the threes at a more effective pace? Well, personally, I think that just understanding when the opponent is deciding to shoot versus do a pump fake is actually very critical for the Raptors, because if you notice how they played, or rather the types of contentions they were doing up to this point, because they're falling for so many pump fakes, it's causing them to foul the opponent and giving them 4-point plays and really demoralizing the confidence as a result. So by the Raptors understanding when the opponent is going to pump fake versus actually take a shot, it will not only give them more clarity on how the opponent is trying to shoot and what type of shots he is going to be taking, but more importantly, as the game continues into the later stages of the game, the Raptors will be able to come up with different counter plans to stop that guy from getting to that spot altogether, which opens another door for the Raptors to win this game. So hopefully that is something that the Raptors understand or try to analyze going into the future games of this season, because doing so and understanding that will definitely help the Raptors limit the amount of threes that are going for the opponents and give one more avenue for the Raptors to really cement their mark in any game that is played. So I hope that the Raptors do that going forward and the changes are made as the games continue in the season. Of course, one last thing we gotta talk about in this game against the Miami Heat is definitely the veterans. More specifically, Kelly Olynyk and Jakob Poeltl for the Raptors, because without their presence or their knowledge of the game up to this point, well, this game could really went a much more worse direction than what we have been given, because especially in that third quarter when things were looking a little gray for the Raptors due to turnovers and just getting shot from three from anywhere on the court, it was the knowledge of the veterans, especially Kelly Olynyk, from making all those good reads and things of that nature that really helped boost the Raptors' morale once again and started the run to make this game much more respectable once again. And shout out to him as well as Jakob Poeltl, because Jakob Poeltl, man, we don't really need to say much about him. It's clear how much of a big impact he has on this game, and if you want proof of what I mean, just go and check out the highlights from the OKC versus the Raptors game that happened very recently. Because in that game, Jakob Poeltl was out due to an illness, and well, you can really tell how much the Raptors need him, or rather someone of his caliber, on a day-to-day basis. So shout out for Jakob Poeltl for doing him and doing whatever he can to help the team win or try to win, and I really hope that those two players continue to make great plays and strive for greatness in the future games as well. So yeah, overall this game against the Miami Heat was, I would say, a very reflective game, because you could really say, especially from a Raptors standpoint, that this game really accumulated everything that the Raptors have experienced thus far, more specifically in the most recent games, because even though each loss teaches the Raptors something new, it's not until something like this where all of the past experiences come together and just gets thrown into your face, like how the Miami did to the Raptors today. Because I believe through the different lessons that the Miami Heat taught the Raptors, whether that be the three-point shooting or sticking in the game when the Raptors had that comfortable lead, or really getting into the Raptors' head and things of that nature, I definitely think that the Raptors were going to look back on their past games that they had up to this point, as well as this game, to find the little things that really helped the opponent team just get back into this game and take the necessary steps to eliminate that going forward, so that once the Raptors have a really respectable lead, they will be able to hold on to that lead for the rest of the game and ultimately slam the door on the opponent's faces. And until then, we'll just see how the Raptors do in all their future games to come, as well as all their future games in future seasons as well. And yeah, with that being said, if you like these types of videos, make sure to give me one of these, smash that subscribe button and hit that bell. And until next time, Civ signing out.